What did we learn from Chelsea versus Newcastle? Well, poor performance straight away. Let's just get that out of the way. Very, very poor. A lot wrong with this game. A lot wrong with the individual performances of certain players. This was how we sort of lined up in this 4-2-3-1, you could call it, with Felix in the 10, Dewsbury Hall on the right, Mudryk on the left, right? And the first thing before I get into like a few of the tactical things in the first half, second half, a lot of people are already talking about 11 changes, okay? And I agree to an extent of you can't make 11 changes going away to Newcastle and expect to get a result and expect to control the game, especially when Newcastle came with an idea, with a strategy, and with a fairly strong lineup, right? But I do also agree with the narrative, and I'm more so on the side of yes, you do rotate in these stages because you are in the round of 16, technically, of the Carabao Cup, round 4. You've got the Premier League to think about, which, again, is coming thick and fast. You've got the Conference League, which I would dedicate as more important than the Carabao. And this isn't to say that I don't want to compete for the Carabao, because I do. And I'm disappointed that we're out tonight. But the FA Cup, another competition that I would prioritise ahead of it. Put it this way, it's the least on the list of the cups, but that says nothing about how much we should be in for it. But these moments of the competition is when, oh, I don't know why Sanchez is in there, should be Jorgensen, is when these players should be getting their chances. And I agree with most of these changes being made. The ones that don't sit well with me, really the only ones that don't sit well with me, are these two, because they alter the dynamic of the team. And what I mean by that is, Disasi playing here, he doesn't fit this system. He's clearly playing on merit because he's a good leader in the dressing room and he maybe deserves to play because he's training hard and things like this. And Dewsbury Hall is a right winger. It doesn't fit. So in that case, and I understand, again, if there's injuries to the squad, people would be coming out of this game so annoyed because this is, like I said, in terms of a pecking order, this is the lowest down it. So if we did end up starting Madueke, for example, and Gusto, the dynamics here are far better. Far better. Okay? But you do risk one of these two getting injured. Two players that are fairly, okay, they've had injuries in the past, and you've got to look at context last season. Madueke, not so much last season, but in the past he's had injury troubles. Gusto and Reece James, both that would play in this role, poor injury troubles last season, okay? So the right back one's a tough one because you don't have Achimpong, who would make more sense, okay? So unfortunately, Disasi there. Someone like Madueke, especially because Sancho is ill, which again is unfortunate because if Sancho is playing here, then at least then the dynamics look correct. But Dewsbury playing out wide just didn't work, obviously. So that was the two main sort of things I disagreed with in terms of the lineup and just overall balance in the squad. But the rest of it, Felix deserves to be playing in these. These are his sort of minutes, and Kunku, these are his sort of minutes. Mudryk, I thought was really good today. Badiashile and Disasi are both absolutely woeful. But again, especially with Badiashile, Maresca mentions him a lot that he's working hard in training. So Maresca obviously quite likes Badiashile in that sense, but just so poor from him today. Jorgensen poor, but again he's the cup keeper, and he deserves those moments. Some people want him in instead of Sanchez. So these are his games. You can't complain about that one. Tosin, poor in the first half on the ball, but I thought he actually was a little bit better in the second half, and he actually got into the game a bit. Started playing a few riskier line breakers, which I was happy with. So not too bad. Vega not great, but again, Vega's a favourite of the fans already, and I do prefer him inverting from a fullback position into midfield rather than starting in there like this. But he was in there, and not his best game, but I'm not going to dig him out. Enzo, a lot of people not happy with him. Again, not amazing, but kept things ticking in the midfield, was trying to play these little passes, especially in that second half, 3 or 4 really good passes from him to set us away, but just some poor quality in the final third towards the end. Again, Dewsbury out here, just not very good at all. And it sort of ended up looking like something like this. Let's sort of move this into the tactics now and sort of how Chelsea lined up. Because in the first half, what we often saw, well, Newcastle were going aggressive in the press. And they were pretty much pressing man for man in this sense, okay? Almost 4-3-3, but sort of, again, when they dropped off, it'd be a 4-5-1. 4-5-1. And again, really aggressive here. But where Dewsbury Hall was the man out wide on the right, he's not a direct option, so he was just really lost between these sort of areas, between the winger and the fullback. Mudryk barely makes these runs as it is, and a few times he was trying to get the ball on the sideline to maybe carry it forwards out or maybe come inside. They were just converging on him really well. So they were stopping Mudryk and they were stopping KGH, and they were the outlet balls because of how tight these gaps were throughout the whole game. That 5, they couldn't find Felix and even Nkunku, who was dropping into those zones to receive the ball. Why is this? A massive part of that, the difference from the weekend, is that Cucurella, or at least Gusto, when it was at the weekend, they weren't creating. They wasn't able to pin the centre-backs back with the striker because Nkunku was having to drop into this zone, which is what Jackson did at the weekend. He kept one of the centre-backs, if not both at times, occupied, so that there was acres of space in here to receive behind the line of 5. But what you also had was Gusto, so that you had 2 players in here. And that was almost taking one of them away, or a little bit deeper at least, to sort of cover or like cross cover both players. And this would then, of course, allow these 2 in the middle play tighter or to open these gaps wider. And there was 2 receivers. But what Chelsea did in the first half really poorly, in my opinion, until Maresca tweaked it at half time, which again, credit to him because he did tweak it at half time. Cucurella was coming far too deep into here, Enzo in here, Vega in here, and these gaps, and just so easy to mark them. It was just really easy to mark these guys. These gaps, again, with these, were just so tight. That line of 5 was so tight, and they were just unable to make it through into the likes of Felix, who was having to pretty much cover both receiving pockets rather than having him on one side and then Cucurella on the other. So that was an issue in the first half, and it made it tight. Of course, there's the defensive issues in the first half. Disassi own goal, disarray from the free kicks of Newcastle, the quick free kicks where, again, it was pretty much down the channels when the back four was really tight, really narrow, and the ball was just played in and around here. And there was just nobody in pressing distance to the point where they could just walk up, dink a ball in, and I think, again, it was Disassi in this area, own goal. That was for the second goal, and then Isaac's first goal as well. Just poor moments of defending, poor lapses, and Maresca even said it was those sort of 10 minutes that lost us the game defensively, and just, again, like, there was a point where Vega got the ball and he lost it, and that led to their goal. I think that was the Isaac goal, but just really, really poor, playing ourselves into trouble, and there's not much else you can do with that in terms of, from Maresca's point of view. Like I said, this was the main tactical flaw, in my opinion, in terms of making that easier for Newcastle to trap Chelsea in. But defensive errors, that just came from these guys were just really poor in the first half, especially at keeping the ball. They were able to then really apply pressure to the point where they were winning the ball back in these areas. And then that's where the Isaac goal comes from. That's where they start to apply pressure, win free kicks. And they had that little period of the game where they just took over a little bit, with especially with the high pressing intensity and just really making these guys struggle on the ball, to the point where I was just begging for Cole at that point to be brought on because it was just so poor at being able to progress the ball into these areas. But as I said, in the second half, we're already 2-0 down at this point, poor defensive errors, so the game's almost gone in that sense. Cucurella is told to go and sit in this pocket, which far better, and you could see much more that sort of triangle there, and Nkunku dropping in as well, much like they did at the weekend. The wingers high and wide, like I say, Dewsbury Hall for Madueke happened about 60 minutes. That also helped the dynamic of the game. And again, we started to see this pentagon start to stretch out their midfield, and Chelsea did take a little bit of control in this game, finally. And then it just came down to Chelsea didn't take their chances. They created enough chances in the game to score, and Nkunku should have had at least one. I think Mudryk actually played really well. I'm going to read out a few of Mudryk's stats, actually, because I think he should have had an assist minimum, because he set up Nkunku and Nkunku fluffed one on inside the box. Mudryk won 7 out of his 11 duels, ground duels. He won 1 out of 2 headers or aerial duels, made 2 tackles. He also made 90% of his passes, played 2 key passes, and had 1 shot blocked. Completed 1 successful dribble as well. I thought Mudryk was good. I thought he was positive. He played some really clever passes into Nkunku. Like I say, he should have had an assist. He played another one into Felix, which was unlucky, but a little outside the boot pass. I think that actually might have been in the first half, that one. But I was fine with. I was happy with Mudryk's performance. So definitely not going to dig him out. I think he's actually the positive to take from this game of anyone, really. He's the one that I'd be taking from this game. Felix had plenty of chances. Let's have a look. He had 6 shots, 2 on target, 2 off target, 2 blocked, 1 out of 1 dribble attempts, 3 out of 7 ground duels, 1, 86% pass accuracy. He got into some really good shooting positions. Probably should have done better. And Nkunku really poor for me today, as I said earlier as well. I just think he was just missed a few big chances in the box that he has to be taking. A few times he just didn't make it stick in and around this area either. Made the wrong pass at times as well when in these little areas in that triangle. And overall, just not good enough. Like it's easy to tell you that, but plenty of poor performances in this game. Could Cole Palmer have come on and changed the game? Yes. If he comes on and gets injured, are people losing their minds? Yes, because then it's a massive hindrance to our season. And if this is the game where you lose him in a game that relatively, in the grand scheme, matters less, and like I keep trying to reiterate, I still care about losing this game. But if there's a game where you should trust Felix to be that guy, and it's his initiative over Palmer's to be in that number 10 and to create, I think this is the sort of game where you got to let it ride. And a lot of people sort of lost their mind about them. Like I say, Nkunku I thought was poor, but Felix I didn't think was the worst today. I think he still tried to make things happen. He looked frustrated at times, but he was trying and he was receiving between the lines. He was frustrated in that first half because, like I said, that ball just wasn't coming through. He was popping into these areas and it just wasn't coming through because the space was just so easy for Newcastle to shut off due to Kukurea dropping too deep. And overall, I think the main things to take away from this game are just really poor performances from these two, especially Dewsbury Hall starting on the right, just a poor decision, but also just a poor performance. Nkunku thought was poor, and then maybe Vega as well. But again, I think he's got a little bit of credit in the bank compared to others. Of course, Nkunku does for his goals, but in the overall play, I haven't actually been that impressed with Nkunku in many of the games. He's had a few where I have been, a few where I haven't been. I know what he brings. He's a clinical finisher in and around the box, and that's a quality that we do need. So, again, hesitant with sort of throwing him under the bus. But these three especially, and even Jorgensen actually, because he was poor for the goal and had a few moments. So poor from them. And it altered the whole landscape of the game. Do I think we played a better second half? Yes. Do I think the structure was far better? Yes. Do I think we created enough in that second half? Maybe not enough clear cut, but enough in terms of what we're doing on the ball and in terms of the idea. Yeah, I do think we did. I think it was like 2.2 XG, putting a lot of that coming in that second half. I think that proves a lot. I think it got better, but we're out of the competition. Let me know what you guys think about that. Let me know how much that has sort of how many changes you would have made, where you stand on that side of the argument, having 11 changes, maybe making 8 or 9, and maybe keeping 1 or 2, like I said, with these sort of key areas of the pitch, maybe to just provide a little bit more balance to the team with 1 or 2 not being changed, just to provide that structure and that overall dynamic to still remain the same rather than having to completely drastically change it with having Dewsbury out wide. I'm not blaming this game on Maresca whatsoever. And I'm intrigued to see what you guys say. Tomorrow we'll have the Amarin video out, and on Friday we'll have the Manchester United opposition analysis video out, which will then speak about, and during that video we will talk about what the team should be to face Man U, how it could look, how Chelsea will match up against Manchester United's players, and vice versa for all of that stuff. So please do check all of that out. Leave likes on all those videos, and do leave a like on this video. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one.